The first thing a foreigner encounters upon setting foot on Argentine soil isn't the scorching sun or the view of the Andes. It is physical contact, or rather, its complete and unconditional invasion of your personal space, which you might be used to guarding like an inviolable fortress. Imagine, you've arrived at a business meeting, say with a doctor or a new boss. Instead of a dry handshake or a nod, you are greeted with a warm embrace and a resonant kiss on the cheek. One, or even two. This is not a slip-up, not familiarity, and certainly not an attempt to violate hierarchy. This is the saludo, a standard greeting, a protocol as mandatory as saying hello. For an Argentine, there is not a drop of promiscuity in this, only sincere benevolence and openness. But for our mentality, especially if you're from Northern Europe or North America, such behavior can seem shocking. We build invisible barriers. Colleagues stay at arm's length, acquaintances even further. Our personal space is a sacred sphere, the violation of which is tantamount to an attack. Here, however, this sphere is public, accessible, and generously shared with others. A kiss upon meeting is an act of recognizing the other as a human being, an instant creation of a connection, however fleeting. It erases formalities, turning a business conversation into a human-to-human talk. By the way, before strangers kiss you to death, subscribe to the channel. They say that every new subscriber gets plus 100 charisma points and immunity from awkward silences, while those who just watch risk spending their whole lives greeting people with only a dry nod. I wouldn't risk it if I were you. Hit that button. One could, of course, write this off as Latin passion and emotionality, but in reality, this is a deep cultural setting. Here, closeness, warmth, and human contact are valued above conventions and distance. It is a world where from the first moment, you are not a stranger, but a potential friend.
And this friendly kiss is just the first, most obvious sign that the rules of the game have radically changed. But if the kisses can still be attributed to friendliness, the appearance of local ladies causes a real stupor. Stepping out onto the streets of Buenos Aires, you will make a second discovery that will turn your ideas about age limits and decency upside down. Take a closer look at women of an elegant, let's say, certain age. You won't see modest grandmothers in shapeless cardigans, hiding figure flaws and worn-out slippers here. Instead, you will be presented with ladies whose style and self-confidence could give many 30-year-olds a run for their money. Deep cleavage, tight-fitting dresses emphasizing everything that can be emphasized, heels, bright lipstick, and impeccable styling of gray hair. This is not a caricature, but an everyday norm. The concept of dressing your age is completely absent here. An Argentine woman at 70 does not believe that her mission is to blend into the background, to turn into an invisible keeper of the family hearth. She continues to live, brightly, passionately, noticeably. This is not vulgarity, as it might seem to an outside observer. This is a philosophy. The philosophy of the absence of complexes born of other people's expectations. In Argentina, age is respected, not as a reason for withering, but as evidence of a life lived that deserves to be celebrated. An elderly woman here is not an old lady, but a señora, respected, stylish, full of strength. This visual message says one thing: my value is not tied to the number in my passport. My body, its forms, and the desire to like myself are my prerogative for life. For an audience accustomed to thinking that life slows down after 50, this can be a challenge, but it is also a liberating example.
Argentine grandmothers prove that you can be sexy, attractive, and attentive to yourself at any age, without waiting for anyone's permission and without looking back at judgmental glances. Their cleavage is not a challenge to the youth, but a manifesto of their own dignity. In a consciousness raised on the ideals of hyper-responsibility and the duty of the hostess, an Argentine woman would appear to be an exemplary idler. Because here, the myth that a good woman is first and foremost a good, that is, tired, housewife is completely shattered. Priorities are set with the chilling clarity of a perfectionist. Domestic life is secondary. It should not be the meaning of life, the devourer of time and energy. An Argentine woman will not have a shadow of a doubt when choosing between a general cleaning and meeting friends for a glass of Malbec. The answer will always be in favor of live communication, of life. The key to understanding this domestic indifference is the phenomenon of the mucama. This is not a maid in the Downton Abbey sense, but a helper around the house. And what is most surprising is that not only the elite, but also the middle class use the services of a mucama. This is not a luxury, but a social norm, part of the culture. Once a week or more often, a woman comes to wash the floors, wipe the dust, and iron a mountain of laundry. This allows the mistress of the house not to immerse herself headlong in routine. The attitude towards dust itself is also philosophical. El polvo se acuesta y yo me acuesto. The dust settles, and so do I. Perfect sterility is not the goal. Personal comfort and rest are far more important. And now, honestly, how do you like this philosophy? Write in the comments, could you calmly look at dust while drinking wine, or would your hand reach for a rag itself? Do you consider this laziness or healthy indifference?
And don't forget to like this video if you also wanted to hire a mucama for at least a day. It helps us find even more such hacks for a happy life. The contrast is most evident in the Holy of Holies, hospitality. A traditional hostess in many cultures might spend 3 days in the kitchen preparing a feast of salads, appetizers, and complex hot dishes to impress guests and prove her worth. An Argentinian woman, without blushing, will order pizza or empanadas, set the table, and focus on the main thing, communication. There is a famous story about a cultural clash. A mother-in-law visiting her son and his Argentine wife was shocked by the lunch her daughter-in-law served without a shadow of embarrassment. Empanadas were a frozen box heated in the microwave. For one, it was a sign of disrespect. For the other, an absolutely normal and practical solution, freeing up time for family. The afternoon siesta is another sacred ritual that will not be violated for the sake of washing dishes. The dishes can wait, but rest cannot. And if you can still get used to dirty windows, our hostess is not ready for what is happening in the kitchen, the Holy of Holies. Argentina is an amazing, almost paradoxical cocktail of body positivity and the cult of plastic surgery. On the one hand, the country consistently ranks in the top 5 in the world for the number of plastic surgeries per capita. On the other hand, you will rarely meet standard Instagram perfect models chiseled to the millimeter on the streets. Here wanes a cult of the body, but understood very peculiarly, not as an ideal body, but as one's own beloved body, which needs to be presented in the most favorable light. The main rule of the Argentine dress code, valid for all ages and sizes, from XS to XXL, is tight-fitting clothing. Jeans, leggings, dresses, everything should be tight, emphasizing forms, whether they are curvatures or thin. Hiding figure flaws with baggy hoodies is considered bad manners here.
This is not a challenge to society, but the norm. My body exists. It is what it is, and I proudly demonstrate it. Plastic surgery fits into this philosophy as a tool for oneself, not for others. It is comparable to going to the dentist or the hairdresser, a service to improve the quality of life and self-perception. A grandmother at 65 can get a facelift or breast augmentation, not for her husband's attention, he might not even exist, but because she likes it that way. It is an investment in her own self-esteem. At the same time, there is no cruel bullying for excess weight often found in other societies. The beauty of lush, sensual forms is sung in tango and is part of the national aesthetics. Another cornerstone is the complete absence of the concept of home clothes in our understanding. An Argentine woman might run out for bread in sweatpants, although this is already extreme. But in the evening, even if dinner is planned at home, she will put on makeup, wear a beautiful dress and heels, as if going to the Oscars. Again, this is for herself. Silicone and the scalpel are simply allies in this personal holiday called everyday life. Such self-confidence, of course, affects how these women behave with men, and here the most interesting part begins. If you think that in the land of tango and legendary machos, a patriarchal order reigns where a woman submissively waits to be chosen, you are deeply mistaken. The reality is that Argentine women are the main directors and producers in the theater of relationships, and men here are often chamulleros, sweet-talking chatterboxes, masters of beautiful but sometimes empty speeches. The culture of piropos, street compliments, is eloquent proof of this. Que linda estás, mi vida. A builder from a scaffold or a taxi driver passing by might shout. For a person raised in a paradigm where such behavior is regarded as harassment, this is a shock.
In Argentina, this is part of urban folklore, a playful, almost poetic ritual. A woman is rarely offended. More often, she either ignores what was said or responds with an equally ironic or sharp joke, putting the insolent man in his place. It is a test of confidence and a game in which both sides know the rules. But most importantly, the initiative in serious relationships often comes from the woman. An Argentine woman chooses the object of interest herself,
can approach to get acquainted herself, decides herself whether there will be a second date. She does not play hard to get. She is a hunter. The myth of the omnipotent macho is shattered by everyday life. At home, the typical Argentine man often turns out to be that very mama's boy who reverentially listens to his mother, the cult of the mother here is huge, and largely obeys his wife. This is not passivity, but rather a recognition of the strength and authority of the woman in the family. The facade of machismo remains for the street, but the internal structure often gravitates towards a soft matriarchy. You can observe amazing scenes in a cafe. An elegant 70-year-old señora with ease and royal dignity can accept or, conversely, reject the courtship of a 40-year-old admirer. She feels her power and value, independent of age. Flirting here is not the prerogative of the young, but a constant social dialogue in which the woman is always a full and strong party. But even having found her macho, an Argentine woman is in no hurry to create what we call a unit of society. Here, one sacred concept is replaced by another, no less sacred, the family as a clan. If for the Western mentality the independence of a child who flew out of the parental nest at 18-20 is a matter of pride, then in Argentina such behavior can easily be considered almost a betrayal.
The phenomenon of adult children living with their parents until their temples turn gray is not a sign of infantilism, but a fusion of economic necessity and deep clan mentality. Take one, a successful 35-year-old IT specialist. He has a car, travels, takes a girl to expensive restaurants, and he lives with his mother in a spacious apartment in the Palermo district. Instead of looking askance at him, colleagues and friends see common sense and even prestige in this. He helps the family, does not squander money on a rented kennel, but saves for his own housing. His mother is not a servant, but a mistress whose authority is undeniable. Sunday in such a house is inviolable time for asado, the mandatory family gathering. To be absent without a valid reason is a terrible sin. 3 generations gather at a long table laden with meat and wine, from grandfathers to babies. Everything is discussed here, from politics to personal problems, and important family decisions are made here. A special role in this clan is assigned to the grandmother. She is not a free babysitter on call. She is the queen mother. Grandchildren are not dumped on her when needed. They are brought to her to bow, as if to an audience. Her word is weighty, her approval is sought, and her house becomes a center of gravity. Such a life in a tight interweaving of family ties, of course, does not do without friction. But instead of accumulating resentment for years, Argentines prefer a radically different approach, to let off steam immediately and publicly. Why endure if you can talk? Or better, shout and figure it out. This country is the world capital of psychoanalysis. Buenos Aires has the highest number of psychologists per capita in the world. Having your own therapist here is as normal as having a family doctor or dentist. This mass therapy removes the taboo on expressing emotions. Washing dirty linen in public is not a shame, but a necessity. Therefore, scenes of stormy showdowns on the street, in a cafe, are commonplace. 2 people can scream at each other, gesture wildly, bang their fists on the table, and half an hour later, having splashed out emotions, calmly drink coffee, hugging. This is not drama out of nowhere. It is a recognized form of communication to prevent conflict from going deep and turning into quiet, corrosive hatred. Emotionality, elevated to a cultural norm and curbed by psychoanalysis, gives a person amazing freedom, not to be afraid of their feelings, but to live them and let them go. And when inner demons are tamed, a space opens up for pure, unrestrained pleasure from life, which knows no age limits here. Imagine that your grandmother, instead of drinking tea by the TV at 9 p.m., is only applying makeup at 10 to go to dinner and hits the dance floor at 1 a.m. In Argentina, such a scenario is not fantasy, but common practice. The local daily routine can kill a trained northern pensioner, but it gives Argentine señoras a second youth. Dinner here is a sacred ritual that starts no earlier than 9 or 10 p.m. Restaurants are empty at 8:30, but packed by 11, and the tables are full of gray-haired, elegantly dressed couples. They slowly taste steaks, drink Malbec, argue loudly, and laugh. But the true temple of this late, eternally young life is the milonga. This is not just a dance evening, but a social institution, a hobby club, and group therapy rolled into one. Here, an 80-year-old couple who have spent half a century together can dance with such passion, tenderness, and drama that 20-year-olds will blush with envy. For many elderly people, especially widows, the milonga becomes a salvation from loneliness, a cure for the body and soul. An Argentine grandmother would rather go dancing until dawn or drink wine with friends than sit on a bench for hours discussing the shortcomings of neighbors. Insomnia? This is not a problem, but a bonus. More time for life.
Old age here is perceived not as a sunset, but as a long-awaited time of freedom, when children have grown up, obligations have become fewer, and one can finally live for oneself. Looking at this carnival of life, where age is just a number in a passport, you involuntarily ask yourself, why do Argentine women, and especially grandmothers, often look and feel younger than their years? The secret is in the ability to shed a giant invisible layer of stress, the stress of constantly looking back at what will people say. Here, they simply don't understand this phrase. Why suffer trying to squeeze your unique, complex, emotional life into the narrow, alien framework of decency? Why endure an unloved job, unhealthy relationships, uncomfortable dresses? Argentine women instinctively understood a simple but revolutionary truth. The energy we spend on meeting external expectations is life stolen from ourselves. They invested inward, into therapy, into self-care, which is an act of love, into dances that ignite an inner fire. Their strength is in the absence of an internal censor whispering about duty. They live in acceptance mode. Yes, I am like this, and the world will accept me like this because I accept myself without conditions. And now it becomes clear that these sins, vanity, laziness, lust for life, are actually a recipe for an amazingly holistic and free life. Imagine that you have been dragging a heavy, battered suitcase without a handle for many years. Inside are stones labeled, "It's necessary," "What will the neighbors think?" "Be patient," "Wrong age," "It's indecent." Dragging it is inconvenient. Throwing it away is a pity. What if it comes in handy? And now imagine that you just untie the straps and leave this suitcase right where you stood, at an intersection, in a park, on the imaginary border with Argentina, and take the first step light. This call is not to urgently move to Buenos Aires or throw a tantrum in a supermarket. It is a call for a small, personal, quiet revolution. To allow yourself to sin tonight, if only for a short while. Don't cook dinner if you don't want to. Order your favorite food. Put on that very impractical dress that hangs in the closet for a special occasion, because tonight is that special occasion. Laugh loudly without covering your mouth with your palm. Say no without guilt. Invite your husband or friend to dance in the middle of the living room, just because you want to.